Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is the second hour of News Check, where we'll be focusing on the education sector, especially the changes we have witnessed within the education sector 14 years later, given that we do have the Constitution, a 2010 document that has clearly stated that the right to education has been envisaged there, so that every learner, despite where you are in this particular country, within the 47 devolved units, as long as you're within the territory of Kenya, you have the right to education. So what are the progresses we have been made, and what are some of the misses that we have been witnessed in this particular sector of the education? And we've also witnessed in the last few weeks or so the clamour for more funding within the education sector, more tutors at the end of the day to be enrolled in various institutions across the country. You do remember that the administration, when it took over power, clearly hired 50,000 teachers. They're saying that they will have 20,000 more hired once there is funds to do that particular exercise. We have seen even the JSS teachers coming on board, something that we never had previously. Also, some of the promotions and progressions of teachers within those particular institutions. But to the learners more specifically, you do know that currently we are operating on a different education system from the 844 to the CBC curriculum that has been inculcated to the lower primary all the way to institutions of higher learning. How are they progressing, and was this change needed? That is some of the discussions we want to have this morning with some of our specialists who are already here in studio. CBC on teachers and learners with special needs and other issues arising within the education sector. Keep the conversation ongoing at KBC Channel 1 and at Abdiaziz Hashim 1. So we have Mr. Peter Mbogwa, the Secretariat of the Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers, that is KUSNET. Thank you for coming in, Peter. And of course, welcome back, Joshua Nyambane, an educationist. Asante sana for coming in.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Joshua. Before we enter into the topic of the day, you saw what happened in the evening where KUPPET had to call off their strike. So will this be a relief for parents and teachers who, parents and students who are sending their kids home?
Abdi, thank you for the question. I believe it is definitely a relief. What I would say is that the government should actually look for ways of handling industrial disputes. We don't have to have a strike, or rather teachers go on strike, for us to be able to resolve the issues. We are growing at a fast rate. Kenya is a country of international repute, a country that respects both international conventions, because we are members of the International Labour Organization. We have also established quite a robust, trade unions, and of course we have Commission of Remuneration, as SRC, and we also have the Ministry of Labour, which I believe together with the Ministry of Education and TSC, going forward, this issue of teachers going on strike should be a thing of the past. Otherwise, I wish to thank KUPPET and NAT for giving opportunities Kenyan students and pupils to go back to school and learn, especially at a time like this when you're looking forward to have the national examinations begin, which is very important, not only for the students, but of course for the future of Kenya in terms of matters of education.
And Peter, given that you come from different umbrella, of course, these are your colleagues who had gone on strike. Now they have called it off. So what are some of these issues that you have been witnessing within the education sector that it has brought teachers at the end of the day to the streets, aside from funding?
Thank you very much, Abdi. The teachers have been on the streets because of a myriad of reasons. One, the deductions, the third-party deductions, where teachers are covered by a health scheme, by health insurance, and that money is not submitted to the insurer. And therefore, when teachers go to hospitals for medication, they are turned down or they are turned away. Probably, for example, Minute AON. That was a teething issue. And I'm happy the bipartite talks that were held yesterday between KUPPET and the Teacher Service Commission has resolved that. That has been a major issue with the teachers. Another issue that made the teachers to point to the streets was the issue of the CBA. This CBA comprehensive bargaining agreement was signed in 2021, and it was to run for 5 years, 2021 to 2025. It was signed in Safari Park in the year 2021. Probably to bring you up to speed, you remember in the year 2021, when this CBA was being signed, the country was struggling with the aftershocks of COVID, and therefore the CBA that was signed then did not have any monetary gain. And the teachers in the street, you'll hear them call that CBA the maternity CBA, because the only thing that came out of that CBA was the extension of maternity leave for teachers. But again, after COVID, post-COVID, the economy improved, and the Teacher Service Commission found it prudent to call for a review of the 2021-2025 CBA. So in the year 2023, precisely in August, the Commission called all the unions to review, to have an addendum of the CBA. Remember, a CBA, once it is signed, it is deposited in court. And therefore, the Commission, in its wisdom, was able to solicit some money from the government and called all the unions to review the CBA so that they could give teachers something out of that running CBA. Remember, even now it's a live document. And in that review, they were given 9.5%. The first phase of that was to be implemented in September, and the second phase was to be implemented 1st of July this year. So the first phase, was implemented without any much ado. But now coming to the second phase, because the first phase was about 4%, 4.25%, and the second phase was to be 4.25% to add up to 9.5%. So on 1st of July, the teachers were expectant to receive their dues. That is the end of July, and that one did not happen. And therefore, that brought a lot of turbulence within the education sector. And the teachers were asking themselves, it is the first time that a CBA has been signed, deposited in court, and the government fails to honor. And therefore, it brought a lot of issues. And, unions started issuing threats, including my own union, that the government should look for money and pay the teachers the second phase. So what probably the public don't know out there, the unions were not negotiating for a new CBA. They were pushing for the implementation of the second phase of the reviewed 2021-2025. So I want to put that very clear.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that clarity. As I go back to Joshua, same issue. We're talking about, you saw what happened with the finance bill of 2024. It was dropped. At the end of the day, the government had to say we need to have a lean budget so that every sector at least gets something. Now, given that they have sorted the issues within the education sector, don't you think the government has opened up a Pandora's box where other sectors now will come? Given that you have sorted the education sector, sort us now.
Differently, Abdi, but I think I have a different approach.
Okay.
The government must or should, in fact, have a plan. The civil, as we speak right now, there is a notice of strike from the civil servants. I believe that it's high time that we work with plans. We know very well that economic constraints catalyze some of these actions. Salary increments should be something that comes to the budgetary allocations. The fact that we have, or the president kind of dropped the finance bill does not stop the will from learning. The government still, through Kenya Revenue, through KRA, collects revenue. And it's high time for us now to prioritize and see how we can be able to allocate the resources that can be able to sustain us. Of course, it's a discussion that requires, people to come together, look at how we can be able to for instance, look at how we can be able to cut our expenditures. But salary increments should be, or is, part and parcel of the labor, rights of employees. So the government should plan itself, priority first. If I can ask you, how much does a member of parliament earn? Why is it that a member of parliament should earn over $1 million plus, where a teacher is earning 20,000 Kenyan shillings? In the same economy, we go to the same supermarkets, we buy the same uniforms. Why is it a big disparity? Why can't we come together as a people and decide that this is the amount of money that is going to be used for the wage bill? The people working in the public sector, just like the people working in the private sector,
yes,
they deserve a decent living, and actually they deserve a better pay. So for me, let the government prioritize the revenue collected. Let us seal the loopholes where we, wastage of resources, and redirect them once, so that we can be able to ensure that if labor organizations are satisfied, then of course we are assured of service delivery within the public sector. So let the government, that's why we have a government.
Yes.
They have dropped the finance bill, but they must look for ways and means of trying to raise revenue and also controlling corruption, which has taken most of the money that is supposed to be paying teachers, doctors, security forces. I don't see the reason why a policeman is earning less than 30,000 and is actually trying to guard a bank which is worth over 400 billion. How is that normal in a country where we should have equality, or if not equality, at least we should be able to ensure that people earn modesty and they can live a modest lifestyle.
And let me come back to Peter. Maybe tell our viewers, how crucial is the third term, and why was it important to bring back the teachers back to classes?
Abdi, third term is the heartbeat of the education. To the learner, third term means transition, because that Form 4, who is going to sit for the KCSE, will transit to tertiary institution or to the university. And therefore, it was a very trying moment for both the parent and the candidates, because 1 week is lost, actually almost 2 weeks, because we know some learners were sent away yesterday. The strike was called off in the evening.
Yes.
Now again, today they're on the road. And by week 2, they're supposed to have settled, probably, and started with the revision. So the candidates, this means a lot to them, because now the teachers are not settled down with them, to revise with them, to prepare them for the KCSE, because now we don't have KCPE. But remember, there is also KAPSEA for grade 6,
Yes.
So that they can transit to junior school. And therefore, it was the wrong time. There's no right time to strike, but this one hurts most, because you remember all of us were in school, and our third term is when we recollected ourselves, we were able to revise and probably prepare ourselves to go to the next level. And therefore, it's very unfortunate that this strike came when it came, and I hope that, because we know our teachers are resilient, our learners too, by the end of this week, coming to next week, those who are handling candidates will be able to focus and really prepare our candidates for their end of year exam.
Now, one would wonder, could this hamper the performance of the learners?
Let me say that yes and no, because we know some schools are advantaged. You'll find that maybe some national schools, you'll find that probably they cleared their curriculum probably by the beginning of this year, and therefore they have been revising from second term. But again, we also know that there are rural schools in the interior that have no enough teachers, they don't have resources. and they require every minute, every hour to prepare for the exam. So therefore, you'll find that schools that are endowed in terms of resources and they have enough teaching staff will be able to settle down very quickly. And you can imagine, I have not seen a national school send their learners back home. And I'm saying this with a lot of humility. But you'll find that some schools are already disadvantaged in terms of where they are located, in terms of staffing, in terms of resources. Probably some don't even have teachers to handle some of the learning areas. And you can imagine now, they'll also take longer to settle. This back and forth, going home, going back to school, then going back home, then automatically I believe it will have a ramification on their performance.
Yes. And Joshua, as you respond to the same, is this a special scenario now where tutors such as yourself here at Peter consider that the grade be lowered, especially for the learners, to consider some of these disadvantages Peter is talking about? We have seen even climatic interruptions interrupting the education calendar. We have seen various incidences that have been able to interrupt learning in various parts of the country, especially parts of the Baringo and other parts that are experiencing banditry. We have seen learners not going to school due to fears of insecurity. So is this a scenario where we will see even KCSE this year, the grades being lowered?
Abdi, I want to give you bad news. Unfortunately, the grades will not be lowered to favor anyone. Whether you're in a village school or you're in a national school, one of the reasons why education is a factor that promotes national unity is the fact that we do the same exams. We have the same syllabus that is supposed to be covered within a time frame of 4 years. Of course, some of these hindrances affect most of the schools. There are some of the schools that devise a methodology that favors them to cover the syllabus earlier. But of course, considering the fact that the resource factor, all the schools don't have the same resources, they don't have the same capacity, they don't have the same resources, including textbooks, infrastructure. But now, compound all those challenges with the teachers going on strike. The fact that these children deserve a right to education ends where the teacher himself or herself, as a child, also deserves the right to education. So it's a very delicate balance. But I want to tell you that this will definitely affect the results. I would want to urge the Kenya National Examination Council to always be alive to this fact. And by that is why we are really, working hard to do with the 844, because only one exam is gonna define the future of many or millions of Kenyans. And this, for me, as an educator, shouldn't be the case. At times where we have a lot of challenges, the Kenya National Examination Council could go back to the same school and look at the formative assessment tests or results and combine them together so that we can be able to have an affirmative action, even when it comes to exams. I am looking forward to a day where one examination should not actually define the future of somebody. And this strikes, and that's why I started by saying the government always should do its best to honor CBS, and if there is an issue, they will rather resolve these industrial actions earlier before, because it will eventually affect the children who have a right to education. Yes,
which is envisaged in the Constitution that we're coming to now. We're talking about, Peter, Joshua has just touched upon it. We have changed now our curriculum. We are under the competency-based curriculum. From the 844 now we no longer have KCPE to talk about. We're going to talk about KCSE for the next few years before it is phased out by this curriculum itself. So did it warrant to change our education system?
I would say yes, because 844 has been with us since 1984. So it had done its bit for around 35 years. And in 2016, a commission was formed that was led by Professor Othiambo, who is late now, and they did the benchmarking. They went to Nordic countries, the whole of East Africa, and many countries. And it was realized that 844 was not churning out graduates that had skills. Those in education, they know it was about rote learning. You cram and then you regurgitate that in the examination room. And therefore, in fact, even in East Africa, we were lagging behind in terms of our education. To benchmark with from 844 to competency-based curriculum, where it inculcates competences, so that we don't have a graduate who has cleared university and cannot get a job. People are having heaps of certificates, diploma, degree, yet that is not what was required by the world of work. So it was important for us to anchor our education system with what the job market required. But let me add a rider, that it was prudent, time was ripe to change the curriculum. Probably, I don't know whether I'm jumping the gun, it is the implementation bit that has caused us problems. But it was important for us to change our education system.
Joshua, are you of the same view?
Some historical perspective. I think before I was born, we had a system which was 7423. That was used in Kenya between 1964 up to 1984. It's up to 1985. Learners could go to primary level for 7 years, then they go for high school, lower high school, for 4 years, then Form 5 and 6 for 2 years, then a minimum of 3. And this is the times when even students used to go to, the NYs, the National Youth Training, so they can be able to, get practical patriotism skills. And then, of course, between 1985, for the last 32 years, roughly 32 to 35 years, we anchored in the 844 system, where learners could go to primary level for 8 years, then high school or secondary level for 4 years, then you are expected to be in the university not less than 4 years. Unfortunately, the 844 system has proven to be worse than the 7423 system, which was used many years back. Why? It was oriented. So long as the end justifies the means, and vice versa. So then we cannot just condemn our people using exam, as I put it, first one exam.
Yes.
And we need to give all the learners opportunities. We now need to give them opportunity to, achieve their abilities and their needs. 2017, a major change occurred in the education system. And that's where we are talking about the CBC, the competence-based curriculum. In summary, this simply implies that we are looking at the various competencies of learners. We are not condemning learners based on one exam. The irony is that we are going to have so many assessments, we call them formative assessments, giving more value, adding to 75%, and then wait for the summative exam that will give you around 25%. Also, the major irony is that the implementation aspect, teacher training, even the implementers of CBC, and I dare say, they don't understand what is CBC. Number two, even capacity building, those in charge of training the tutors themselves, they don't understand what is CBC. Now, I want to pose this as a question to the people of Kenya, that if you mess up education And I'm not saying it's been messed up, because there is a rationale where we have introduced CBC. But if the implementers do not understand, they are not, well prepared to implement this particular curriculum, then the question is, are we heading the right direction? If the people coming up with the curriculum themselves cannot even comprehend what CBC is supposed to achieve, then I'm left wondering whether the system eventually will enable us to resolve the 21st century problems that Kenya is facing. I don't want to give away forward now, but I think the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, should give opportunity to convention, call all the stakeholders, because this CBC, as of now, it has sparked a lot of stakeholder, discouragement or questioning whether there was rushing to implement this particular system or not. As of now, we need to do an audit, and we need to be very thorough, involve all the stakeholders, the teachers, the parents, the students, for us to have a way forward. Otherwise, CBC is not a bad curriculum. Yes.
Okay. And going back to Peter, how are kids with special needs coping with it, given that you're in that sector with the CBC itself? The
CBC, vis-a-vis special needs education learners, has come with resultant challenges. One, the issue of the staffing. Learners in some units and some special schools, learners don't have to teach them this curriculum. Another issue is the issue of devices, the assistive devices. I know the Kenya Institute of Special Education has been mandated to produce assistive devices for the learners. But these devices, the production is a bit slow. They are not getting to schools in time. And therefore, learners are making do without the assistive devices, like orbit readers, braillers, etc., etc. Another issue that has affected the learner is the infrastructure. You find there are schools that are in deplorable conditions. Probably learners with visual impairment, the VIs, they are even the of issues that they are facing with this curriculum. And before I forget, books, KICD approves who is to author books. So if it is Longhorn, whether it is East Africa Education Publishers, Jomo Kenyatta, they produce the books, they print. Once they are out of print, they take a long time to be transcribed. For instance, for the visually impaired. So a book is produced by the printer. By the time it is transcribed by the Kenya Institute for the Blind, I'm just giving an example of the visually impaired, it takes a long time for this book to be converted into Braille. And therefore, the VI learners play catch up. Whereas the schools, the learners in the conventional schools get the books in good time and they start learning, or the curriculum is rolled out. The VI learners will play catch up because before the book is transcribed, it takes a very long time. So there are many issues, but let me mention this, that on the issue of staffing, let me congratulate the Teacher Service Commission, because there were some special needs education teachers that were teaching in the regular schools, and now they have been moved to special schools. I want to be very clear on that, that there are teachers trained in special needs. They were teaching in the regular schools, but the Teacher Service Commission from May deployed 6,000 plus teachers to special needs education schools to mitigate or to plug that gap of staffing. But still we have many challenges, because you find like areas like music or mathematics, you find that very few teachers are trained in Braille to teach maths, trained in Braille to teach music. Those are very technical areas. So you can imagine maybe those learners are not being attended to. So there are there are plethora of problems affecting the learners.
Let me go back to Joshua. We have seen now, even in the last KCC 2023, most of the students who had attained C+ and above, they qualify to go to universities. But we've seen them opting to go to the TVET institutions so that they can get the skills required to attend some of the programs that are currently available. Because you see, the white-collar jobs, at the end of the day, as we call them, are becoming finite within the country. And yet the blue-collar jobs are there. So is this the way to go? And the competency-based curriculum, is this what is envisioning within the education sector?
To be honest, there is a rationale why we have the CBC, because this rationale goes beyond Kenya. It's also informed by international agencies like UNESCO. At a particular time, or within a specific period of time, we have to change our curriculum. And the major reason is that the curriculum should be able to address the issues that affect us at that time. Aspects of issues within the society. Well, we need to have these vocational training institutes. And I want to congratulate and maybe commend the government that we currently have quite a number of TVET institutions across the country. And to be honest, the government is supporting most of the children or the students or learners who are actually proceeding those institutions. Well, Kenya, in the Vision 2030, one of the economic projects is that Kenya should be industrialized by 2030. And for us to industrialize, we therefore require to have availability of labor. And this labor could be specialized labor or skilled or not unskilled labor. So the TVETs are going to be like in terms of industrial revolution, giving practical skills that are required within the industrial sector. Because it's not necessary that all of us will go to university. But the fact is, all of us are successful in life. Because when we were created, each and everybody has a specific ability. And this ability should be given opportunity for it to become the best. And that is precisely why we need the CBC, so that we can be able to identify these special abilities, because of differentiated learning, that not everybody is going to become an engineer. So there are those, not necessarily an engineer, but even a lawyer, a doctor, mechanics, masons, and we need to give them opportunity, and the opportunity for them to flourish and be able to be productive within the economy. Finally, I just want to speak a bit about the special needs education. I feel that we are making steps to the right direction, but each and every time we make those steps, I also feel again that we're making some few steps backward. We are training teachers for special needs, but they are still insufficient to meet the demands in the special needs sector. When it comes to resources or materials or assistive learning materials, we still don't have enough, even books, for the children with special needs. There is a Marrakesh Treaty which gives or tries to ensure that the copyrights of those authors of books can be limited to the extent that it's assisting those learners with special abilities to be able to be given the available resources without, without legal redresses. So if I've authored a book, because of the Marrakesh Treaty, and Kenya is has already ratified that treaty, my book can be actually be converted so that it can be used. It can even be converted to Braille, so that it can be used by those learners with special abilities. we need to ensure there is more funding to the special education needs, and of course do much of integration. Doing much of integration of special learners to the normal schools, that also requires more training that is supposed to be given to the normal teachers so they can be able to understand the needs of those students. I feel good that if we pushed or briefed those disabled members of our communities, then we are going to make more strides forward, going forward.
Have there been even opportunities within the tutelage sector where we've even seen teachers who have special needs themselves are able to some of these institutions? Have that been clearly spelled out?
Thank you, Abdi. The Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers came into being that policy because initially special needs education teachers was being classified as others, and the birth of KUSNET has brought more focus on special needs education teachers. I've just talked about special needs education teachers, as my brother has said. You can imagine they were working in regular schools, yet there was deficiency and serious staff shortage in the special needs education schools and units. So you can see that was a mismatch. A trained teacher teaching in regular schools and a school in the neighborhood was lacking a teacher. And therefore, the union has pushed for these teachers. All teachers will be mopped up. All those trained in special needs will no longer teach in regular schools. They'll either teach in special units or special schools. The first cohort was deployed in May. Let me mention this in your program. The second cohort is being deployed now in September, and the third cohort will be deployed in January 2025. And therefore, we believe with that mopping up, it may not really address 100% special needs education sector, but it will go a long way in addressing the staff shortage. So that was a mismatch because even the Teacher Service Commission was deploying teachers trained in special needs in regular schools, yet children with special needs were suffering in those schools without being taught.
But clearly stated the TAC at least reverted the decision.
It has.
But going to Joshua, what are these other areas we're seeing, especially in this globalized world, in this world that is facing many issues like climate change? So what are these specific areas that needs to be inculcated within our education sector so that at the end of the day, that learner who leaves the school knows that this job opportunity is up for grabs?
I believe that that is a wonderful question. And I think we need to tailor. Of course, we have tailored our education system to meet the global goals. We have 17 sustainable development goals. And for me, the main challenge, if you go to the Ministry of Education, I'm sure we have a department that deals with education for sustainable goals. But when you go to the grounds where the rubber meets the road, you find that not many tutors, or may say not many teachers, understand what are the global goals, especially climate change. You mentioned very clearly climate change or climate action is one of the major goals that is not only being brought out clearly by the United Nations organization, but also within the Kenyan continent, within Kenyan government, and also within African continent. We need to, as we give education, or as we teach our learners, we need to actually show them the practicability of what they are doing and where they need to be absorbed going forward. So as we do our curriculum, we also need to bring in intentionally these sustainable development goals, which should be part and parcel of each and every strand if you're talking about CBC.
Yes.
For the 844 for now, I know we may not do much, but for for the CBC, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development should intentionally have experts to tailor specific, components of each and every specific learning area where it should actually lead our learners to. For us to contribute, we need to even educate our learners how to plant trees and the importance of the environment, come up with projects that are going to ensure sustainable development. When you have projects that will end up eradication of poverty, hunger, we can teach these young people on how to do some entrepreneurial, projects within the school setup. Instead of a school going to buy T-shirts, and at the same school there is a subject called home science, where they do some dressmaking, tailoring. We can empower them through those subjects, through clubs, when they can be able to do some practical approach. If there is an entrepreneurial club, for example, in a school, we invite the bankers to come and assist them, show them how to open a bank account as earlier as when they are in grade 5, grade 6, going forward. So by so doing, these learners are going to ensure that they meet the demands that are there in the market. Finally, there is this aspect of robotics, coding. As we speak right now, the government has said through CDF, they're going to build ICT hubs in each and every ward. I will challenge the government, because these are worthy investments. Make it in every market and every village. Let's make it that way, because the world is heading there. We don't have to create jobs within the government. How many will we create? We will be able to create jobs opportunities on the online platform. A child can be in Kisi, where I come from, the interior village, but working abroad. So that work can be done in the school setup through curriculum, where we teach our young people coding. But I dare say that this requires a lot of enormous resources. Already we have a lot of resources direct to the Ministry of Education. I don't know how much we are going to look for, maybe donor funding, international community to assist us in the realization of the same.
As we enter in the final leg of our conversation, Peter, I want to ask you, how are these special needs kids who are studying in our various education sectors being assessed? Because we have seen them performing exceptionally well when it comes to the KCSEs that have been ever announced in the country.
I think with the right support, with the right policy, with, like what my brother has said, the funding. Let me mention here that the capitation for special needs learners was set during Dr. Kilemi Muiria task force. And since then, it stands at 2040. You can imagine how many years down the line, and the same amount of money is being dispersed to the schools. That money is not enough. That money is not enough, and therefore it is hampering. It is hampering on how special needs learners access education. Let me also mention here that even in the media I have seen the non-teaching staff who teach, who serve in the special needs institutions, the non-teaching staff, you can imagine going for 2 years without pay. So what do you expect of service delivery by the non-teaching staff who are serving these learners? It's a serious indictment on Minister of Education to absorb these non-teaching staff, because they play a pivotal role in regard to these institutions. These learners probably are visually impaired. They need to be cooked for. They need where they sleep. Their beds need to be made. There needs to be a matron, and this matron stays for 18 months, 2 years without pay. These are serious gaps. These are serious issues that the government, the Minister of Education, through probably even the minister, should have a focus on special needs education.
Okay.
We need to re-energize ourselves, to reinvigorate ourselves, so that these children are already disadvantaged by way of they have special needs. So when now again they suffer from those issues that have enumerated, then now you can imagine where we leave them.
Okay, gentlemen, let me get your final remarks given that we are out of time. Let me start with you, Joshua. What will be your departing point, especially for the future that is currently watching us, who are the youth?
First and foremost, Abdi, I want to promise the youth, the Kenyan youth particularly, that the future is promising. This future is promising because education must work.
Yes.
We must do everything within our means to ensure that we contribute to making the future work. By so doing, maybe I would request the government to consider making education in Kenya free, starting from primary level up to university. Then if we make education free, of course, we will guarantee more of Kenyans access to education. So for the youth, of course, we also have to be challenged to think on how we can be part of the solutions for the problems that affect this country. The future is in our hands, and we need to really work extremely hard to be able to be part of the decision making. We also can do this through some of the youth I have seen can actually be elected, and that could ensure that they make or they are part of the decision making. And the future is now. I just want to urge them that through education, then we can be able to guarantee future prosperity for this country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peter, your final remarks?
For the youth, the future is bright, but we have to be adaptable. Because there are global challenges, and those global challenges are not unique to Kenya. And as we say in competency-based curriculum, the youth need to acquire the 21st century skills for them to navigate through the world. We are coming from a situation whereby we were going to school to acquire white-collar jobs. Those white-collar jobs are no longer there. And that's why probably even the Gen Z poured into the streets last month. And therefore, I would wish that our youth are resilient, they are adaptable, and let them have a bigger picture, a wider picture, that probably as a government, our economy is not doing very well. Probably they may not be absorbed, all of them. And therefore, they need to cast their nets wider so that they are able to navigate through these very rough waters of this world. And I would wish to say that, as my brother has said, the ICT is still an unexploited, area. And I would wish, like the government has said, those hubs, let it not be empty talk. Let the government actualize the implementation, the mounting up of iHubs, so that they open more opportunities for our youth, because our youth are desperate out there. Graduates who have done actuarial science, electrical engineering, and many competitive courses are now into illicit brews because of their frustrations. So those are my remarks.
Thank you so much. That is Peter Mbogoa, the KUSNET Secretariat of the Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers. Thank you for making time for us. And of course, Joshua Nyambani, an educationist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time for us to discuss this vital topics. Keep on the conversation going online, but I need to hand you over to my colleague, who is Kasicha Namasha, who is coming up next with Kurunzi Mashinani. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim, and of course, do stay tuned for those conversations that are coming up within the confines of the Kiswahili world.